Another week gone, and we're back again with another Sunday podcast. Really excited to chat to you today at Tajitya. We have sent out the link to a couple of guys. Let's see who comes on the show, who joins myself and Aditya. But I thought it's a nice, interesting topic to discuss today in this particular podcast. I think it's something that maybe relates still to our magazine as well. It's still in falls right in our theme. So guys, go ahead and download the latest issue of the magazine. Link is on the screen in the description as well. Get every single issue 100% free. All you have to do is just put in your email address straight to your inbox every single month with every single issue. So yeah, how are you doing, Aditya? It's the end of the week. We had quite a hectic week. A lot happened for us, both of us. Some interviews, interesting things we heard from certain coaches. What is a lesson maybe that you took away from this week that you can maybe give to our fans? What is something that you learned this week that really changed your life a little bit, or gave you some sort of insight into life and what you can add to it?
Well, I took the second shot of my vaccine, so I'm happy to be fully vaccinated, and I recommend that everyone get the vaccine as of when they can. So thank you to all the brilliant scientists who contributed to the making of the vaccine. But I think other than that, it's been a great week for us. It's been a great week for cricket, for Test cricket, for the 100, which just concluded yesterday. Uh, Quinton de Kock's team, the Southern Braves, won the 100, which is great. The Proteas have done well. There were a lot of Proteas men and women who featured in the two finals. But yeah, I think given the theme that we've been focusing on, coaching, we've heard a wide variety of perspectives from journalists. I hear from a high performance manager, Richard, and from a coach, Mandela. I certainly hope our viewers have enjoyed the content we've been giving them.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I learned this week, jokingly, is that there's nothing happening between the ears. The your brain is where it's at. So that's something that you need to listen to. Mandla gave some excellent insight in that. Is that the only gap is between your ears? And talking about coaching, I think it gave me such an insight. Particularly his interview gave me such an insight into, because it's the first time Richard. I mean, I always enjoy a Richard Das Neves interview. My friend Craig messaged me and he's like, "You love a Richard Das Neves interview." I hope I'm not exposing Craig right now. I think he'll be okay with me saying this. But yeah, he told me, you love one. And I do. I love an interview by Richard Das Neves. It always gives me amazing insight into what is going down and what is happening in the arena. The way he thinks about the game is just excellent as well. But talking about the 100 as well, like Werner said in the comment section over here, shout out to Dane Fenikek and Marazan Cup, as well as Shabnim Ismail as well. All of them doing exceptionally well in the 100. South Africans obviously winning, being part of the winning teams. Quinton de Kock just doesn't stop winning trophies. Let's hope that he can pick up a trophy for international level, because that's something that we need to talk about. I mean, Quinton de Kock is learning how to win trophies. He's done it in Mumbai now twice, and now we're hoping that he can do it. We can hope he can do it for South Africa. Well, I'm saying twice. We have to wait and see. Uh, but ultimately, I think it's really nice to see that South Africans are performing on the world stage. And that's what our next issue is going to be about: domestic cricket, playing overseas, playing in domestic tournaments, domestic T20 tournaments. What are we doing right? Because it seems that we're doing something right in the white ball arena when it comes to producing quality players in South Africa. Because the overseas teams, whether it's in England, whether it's in Bangladesh, whether it is in the CPL, whether it is in the Big Bash, whether it's in the 100, I mean, whether it's in the IPL, it doesn't matter which format, which country. South Africans they always seem to be popular when it comes to these things. So they always seem to be the guys that people turn to. Talking about trophies, particularly I think about this topic, I want to talk about trophies from a coaching perspective. And this is something that we can talk about, whether it's got to do with cricket or across sports. Even in football, we see it too. Do trophies determine the success of a coach, or does it does trophies reflect the ability of a coach and how good a coach is or not or isn't? Should he be judged solely on the trophies that he's won? Is the question that we should be asking as well. So let's get into this, Aditya, because I really think it's an interesting discussion to have whether coaches should be judged purely on the coach on the trophies, and do trophies actually show their true ability? There's two ways of looking at it, because trophies are indication of success, but especially in cricket, I think the players play a large role in that too. A coach can take a player or teams only this so far. Whatever happens on the day on that field is up to the players. So I feel that there needs to creating trophies and creating winning teams, etc., has got a lot to do with finding the synergy between the two players as well as the trophies. But let's just answer the question straight out and then get into a debate. What is your thoughts on that particular question, on answering the main question of this podcast?
It's a loaded question, and it's. I think there are a number of ways to answer it, but at the outset, let me clarify that. I think my stance would be that uh, that winning trophies cannot indicate how good a coach is, but also can't indicate how bad a coach is. And the example that I want to give you there is perhaps John Buchanan, who was coach of the Australian team during the dominant reign
Hmm.
in the 90s and early 2000s, when Michael Clark famously said that my dog Jerry could have coached that Australian team. It wasn't it wasn't down to John Buchanan. So that was interesting that, and he didn't get along with senior players like Shane Warne, who were instrumental to Australia's dominance in that period of time. And if you look at his career post that phase with Australian cricket, he didn't have a successful tenure at the IPL with the Kolkata Knight Riders, and he didn't have a particularly successful campaign at New Zealand cricket either. So does that mean that John Buchanan is a brilliant coach because he won 3 World Cups with Australia? Um, I don't know. It's questionable, right? Because that team had some of the greatest players ever to have played cricket. And then when it came to building a team in the IPL, or perhaps creating a high performance environment in New Zealand, he wasn't as successful. But then on the other hand, Mickey Arthur was coach when South Africa's sort of golden generation was playing, and they didn't win a title either. Is that really an indication of Mickey Arthur's ability as a coach? Probably not, because it
Hmm.
was down to that period of time in a World Cup or in an ICC tournament in general when the team didn't perform. So I don't think that reflects poorly on Mickey Arthur, because it's complicated. Cricket is complicated. But
Yeah.
in saying that, I think we should probably address this question uh, from different levels of cricket, because at the international level you're dealing with a player who's as close to the finished article as he can be.
Yeah.
But at a lower level, at school cricket, for example, when Afis wins, has an unbeaten run of 33 games or 34 games, a lot of credit should be given to Dion Bodies, because those players are nowhere close to being the finished product. But those players have been nurtured by Dion Bodies and his team. Therefore, a lot of that credit should be given to Dion Bodies. So that is a reflection of Dion Bodies' ability as coach. Uh,
Hmm.
but yeah, that's my argument there.
Same thing with regards to the under 19s, the Western Province under 19 team that won the tournament as well. A very successful team, but it had a lot to do with Mr. Graham October and Gershwin Rabi's coaching that really got them to believe in themselves. There was a lot of conversations that happened there, and I would like to get both of them on the show together to discuss that, because there was a lot of conversations that happened there that really had to do with motivating those players to get to that level. Look at what someone like why can I not how can I not get to his name right now? Why am I throwing a blank? the 2014, the 2012 World Cup winning Ray Jennings, with regards to the way he played with that team and getting them motivated and getting them to win, getting Markram from left field almost, and bringing him into that squad and into the under 19 setup to win, to lift as a captain, to lift that trophy, and picking out players like Rabada and knowing that they are that talented. I mean, excellent from his part to do something like that. So your thoughts do come into that for that in that case, when it comes to being in favor of youngsters and making sure that the youngsters are rightly tuned to win a World Cup and a trophy. Because I'm looking at a domestic level, and when you're looking at domestic levels and when you're picking the next Proteas manager, except or the Proteas coach, a lot of the times people were using trophies as a measure to say who should be the next person in line. Now, South Africa have are lucky to have had some very successful domestic coaches put their names in their hat for the South African job. So you have the likes of Mark Boucher, and people argued that Mark Boucher's Titans team was a star-studded Titans team. And the reason he won those so many trophies in those periods is because they had a lot of Proteas players and players that were knocking on the door to become Proteas. Now, when you look at a person like the team like the Lions with Mr. Guavo as well, also for the T20 competition, for example, had a lot of Proteas that were knocking on the door for the team. So a lot of it had to do with obviously having star-studded players. Remember that the T20 team of Enoch that Enoch built, also a lot of star players in the team when he won the tournament. So is it the players or is it the coaching? Now, I do strongly believe that even if you don't win trophies, uh, you can see a good coach's ability by getting the best out of a bunch of players and getting the best out of your players that you have available to you. So you can look at, in football terms, the easiest example would probably be someone like Bielsa at Leeds. The way the Leeds play their football and the way he takes on and how brave they are against top teams, it shows his style and his management style. Does He doesn't win any trophies with Leeds, but the way Leeds plays, even though they're not supposed to play that way, people would say, shows what a good coach he is. There are a lot of examples of that in football. Because remember, in any sport, there's only one winner that can win the trophy. Does Because New Zealand never won the World Cup and lost out to England by a stretch, does that mean that the New Zealand coach is not a good coach? No, it doesn't. It means that on the day someone was victorious. So I think you have to judge things differently according to the levels that you are at. Now, in domestic cricket in South Africa, we've had someone like Ashwell Prince that I like to speak about. His his coaching methods are obviously different, and he had a very young team when he started off at the Cobras. But out of a lot of the young players that he had, he got the best out of them. They might not have won a trophy. They lost it on the last day before their competition in his first season. Like on the last day, they lost the trophy to the Lions. The Lions had a lot of experienced players there. Ashwell did not, but he got six players during his tenure made it to the Proteas national setup, which is an excellent achievement as a coach. Meaning, does that mean because he didn't win a trophy that he's not a good coach? So I don't think that you can look at it as blindly as that. And that's why I put the question on Facebook. And that's why I posed the question to so many people. Because I wanted to see the difference between the two things. I wanted to see what people think about the question and how they answered it. So I'm just going to go to Facebook quickly and have a quick look at what some of you guys answered on this particular when it comes to this answer. Because I put it out there because I knew it's going to divide people. Some people are going to answer the question straight, and there's no right or wrong answer because there's arguments for both sides. As you saw, Aditya in this particular podcast has given multiple reasons for both sides. They are, and I've done the same thing because there are multiple reasons for both sides to win both arguments. So when I look on Facebook and where I posed the question, um, I had a couple of guys. Christoph de Beer said, not at all. That was the question that I asked is the same as this headline. Do trophies reflect your ability as a coach? Christoph de Beer said, no, not at all. Gustav Pieterse said, do trophies make or break? Yes. Lebo Chris Mathakola said, at the highest level, unfortunately, yes, because you're playing to compete. Lester Esterhuizen said, hard work brings trophies and a reflection of sacrifice and commitment. Also, good work ethic. Hard work brings rewards. As a coach, you can carry over to your players and influence them to put in hard yards and reap the rewards. So that's a very diplomatic answer. Um, okay, this name is difficult to pronounce. Muntokozize said trophies are the most straightforward reflection of abilities, not the only reflection though. And our famous Lubabalu said, depends on the level you're coaching. At the highest level, trophies are unfortunately seen as a reflection of what you can do as a coach. Coaching has evolved over the years, and a lot of scrutiny has been put on coaches. Winning matches and winning trophies at the highest level keeps your job. Lita Bulawa said, I think the reflection of a coach is how a team plays. Trophies comes as a reward. Tekedi Ketsise, I think I said it right. What happened with Champions Trophy? Are they not playing for it anymore? He just threw a question in there. Tim Rubin said, you can't be a good coach who wins nothing. Same as good players who win nothing. Rather have average players who win trophies. So that's a completely opposite view to what Lubabalo had to say and what some of the other what Lita said. Then we have Andre van Skalkwyk said, nope, it reflects the ability of the players. Tariq Kokos said, sometimes it's just a good team. So there's multiple different viewpoints when it comes to this. Now we've got Keshuv in the I think I said your name correctly, Keshuv or Keshav Ureya. Trophies don't necessarily reflect the ability of a coach as much as it does for a captain or the players involved in the final, I believe. Gary Kirsten won a World Cup with India, but nothing with SA. So that's a good example. Now, some people will say that the Indian team might have been one of the most talented teams of its generation at the time when Gary Kirsten took over them. But I'm sure that a lot of those players give Gary Kirsten credit for the way the team was managed and coached. When he took over South Africa and he tried to win the World Cup with South Africa, similarly, I think we had a very talented team, but we just couldn't get over the line. So unfortunately, those things happen. Aditya, what is your answer to that?
My first question is, Gary Kirsten hasn't really coached South Africa during a World Cup, right? Because Russell Domingo was coach during 2015. Gary Kirsten was coach of India during 2011 World Cup.
2011
So,
World Cup.
so are we talking about Champions Trophy in 2013 and perhaps the T20 World Cup in 2014? Uh,
Perhaps.
because look, Gary Kirsten had a significantly short tenure with South Africa. He wasn't coach for very long, and in his time, there was such a massive transition, because Callis retired, Graham Smith retired, um, Dale Steyn. I guess he was getting that phase of his career where he started getting a lot of injuries. So it was like there was a transition there, and a young South African team started to form. So I don't think that's really down to Gary Kirsten. That's not his fault. But since we're talking about Kirsten, I can give you a little bit of insight into um, how he was as successful as he was. Okay, at three tournaments, Keshav is saying World T20 2012, 2013, 2014. Okay, I mean, fair enough. Look, I still don't think it's testament to Gary Kirsten's ability to win ICC tournaments. Um, since we talk about India, look, before Gary Kirsten, India had Greg Chappell as coach. Okay, and uh, he was a divisive character because um, he created a lot of controversy. A lot of senior players are upset with Greg Chappell, even though, with the exception of the 2007 50 over World Cup, India had a hugely successful time with Greg Chappell. I think in ODI cricket, we won some 16 games on the trot, batting second. And a lot of the ideas that Greg Chappell had proposed at the time are ideas that we're implementing now. With the sort of bench strength that we've got, creating a pool of fast bowlers and things like that. Uh, but Greg Chappell was a poor man manager. He didn't look at that level. You don't need to teach a batter how to hit a cover drive or how to leave a ball. You don't need to teach a bowler how to bowl a yorker. They know those things. At that point, it's fine tuning. It's managing those players emotionally. Which Gary Kirsten did incredibly well. Because he asked Sachin Tendulkar at the time, you know, how do you want me to coach you? And Sachin replied with, just be my friend. So that partnership with MS Dhoni was brilliant. And Gary Kirsten was really able to get the best out of players by letting them be themselves. So he does have those qualities undoubtedly, but maybe and he had that adaptability as coach. Because he's adapting to possibly the most stressful cricketing environment that he would have ever been a part of. Where you have the expectations of a billion people on your
Yeah,
shoulders. And you're playing with Sachin Tendulkar, you have these superstars in your team, massive egos, and things like that. So he obviously has incredible sort of management qualities, but perhaps
yeah,
South Africa needed something else. You know.
yeah. And I think, I mean, when I was talking about Garicus not getting us over the line, I was particularly talking about the 2020 World Cup in 2012 that he took over. So um, it's the only World Cup that they really want to judge him on, and I think maybe that's not the right way to only judge him on one particular tournament. Of course. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I was a little busy this making sure that I was correct. I see Keshav said over here, Gary Kirsten coach SA in World T 2012 and Champions Trophy 2013, World T20 2014. So the three tournaments, I guess. And it wasn't necessarily. It's just one of those things. I think it's South Africa were their own downfall as players. I don't think it's necessarily the coaching, how you would say, that got them, whether they got them over the line or not. If you get very far with a team, take a team to the final of a tournament, and then you do something from a tactical point of view that sees them out of a game completely, then maybe you can say it's the coaching. But if they're competing in that final and have a proper chance to win it, then you have to put it down to the players. Because I mean, in the 2015 World Cup, for example, there were certain things by players that really got us out of that game. Particularly the way the last over went, I would say, and leading up to that last over, maybe the last over wasn't so good from Dale Steyn. The run out in 1999, I mean, that was down to players, not to coaching. I mean, there's been a couple of incidences where you could say, it's more the players and the coaches that have lost you. So that's not necessarily a true reflection. But when you coach a team and take a team, like for example, what Russell Domingo is doing currently, with Bangladesh, what Mickey Arthur is currently doing with the Blacks, what he did with Pakistan, what he did with them is I think is quite remarkable. Really, he changed their mentality of the way they played. So I think Russell Domingo, what he's done with Bangladesh currently, I mean, recently they're coming of success. So he's changed the mentality there, bringing people in. So it's very difficult to look at it like that because look at what they've done. So when I'll use the Euros for as an example in football, we saw a clear mentality of the way the coach wanted to play his football throughout the tournament, and it got him to the final. They needed to change one or two things maybe in the final and play to their strengths to really have an opportunity to play against to win that game. I feel personally, I think that the coach's tactics lost in that game and not necessarily the players. I don't think that the tactics that was chosen for that match suited the style of plays that he had available to him on his bench and what he had available to him in his first team. So yes, it got them up to that stage and up to that into that level to get to the final. But for that particular final against a team like Italy, I think it was the wrong tactic. So there you can see that tactics changed. When you look at the Champions League final with regards to Pep Guardiola, when he got to the final, this is the opposite of what the England coach did, Gareth Southgate. It's completely different to what Gareth Southgate did, where what worked for Pep throughout the Champions League, he changed it and tinkered it for the final and ended up losing the match. So people would say that that tactic lost in the match, not necessarily the players. An example of the players winning something on their own, well, you can say maybe the example that Aditya gave with regards to Australia. When you have such a world-class team, I mean, Australia was winning back-to-back titles for a long time in like almost, they were really winning a lot of titles in that period. So isn't it the players then, or is it the coaching? So it's a very difficult question to answer, because even when you look at the team of Barcelona that was successful in the past, how much was it down to the talent that they had in the squad, and how much was it actually down to Pep Guardiola as a manager or as a coach? So when you have the likes of Lionel Messi, and you have the likes of Xavi and Iniesta and Piqué and Puyol and all of these great Dani Alves and all these great players you have available at your disposal, Sergio Busquets, world-class players, they should win. You know what I mean? You're gonna have to look at. I think a good example will be now with PSG. They've got all these world-class players. They just signed Lionel Messi, and they have Neymar, and they have Mbappe. Will Pochettino win a title with him? So it's a lot we have to look at when it comes to that. The Titans, Will Coach Mandla that we spoke to, with the star-studded lineup they have, win a trophy or not? Will it determine whether he's a good coach or not a good coach, if he wins a trophy with the Titans or not? When you have a Lions team that's very talented, you've got a Dolphins team that's very talented, you've got a Western Province team that is extremely experienced, you've got a Northwest team that is exceptionally talented. The competition, you have a Boland team that is so balanced. You've got a Eastern Cape team that has a lot of youngsters with a good coach at the helm. We've got a very competitive league. So are you going to determine whether Robin Peterson, whether Andy Burrell, whether Guavo is a good coach or not, based on that? I mean, there's an up there's it's there's an opportunity. There was a time when an interim coach at Chelsea won a Champions League when they weren't anywhere in the they weren't doing that well in the league, but he won them a Champions League. Does that reflect that he's a good coach, or did the players win that particular trophy? So it's very difficult to actually talk about this. I want to take a more balanced approach. I want to say that it's a bit of both. I think personally that trophies are a result of is the cherry on top. It's the cherry on top of what your team has succeeded in the way they've played throughout that time. I don't know if that's the stance that you want to take, Aditya, but that's what I think. It's a balance of both. I think winning the trophy is like finally seeing your coaching come to fruition, but it can also mean that your players are bloody good. So you need to look at the balance, because if Mark Boucher wins a World Cup with this group of players currently, it could mean that he just had a very good mentality of players, but it could also mean that there was a very good coaching during this period. But it's very difficult to look at an international team when you don't really spend a lot of time with them. You spend times with them in chunks and periods. In cricket, it's a lot different. It's a lot more different than football. With your club, with a World Cup, for example, when you're playing a football World Cup, you only see them for a couple of months, and then you play your international football. It's not like you get them the entire year. Like in cricket, the coach spends a lot of time with these players over a season because we play a lot of games internationally. Whereas in football, you don't actually play a lot of international competitive games. It only really becomes competitive in the World Cups. So you spend a lot of your times with your with your franchise or your club. Whereas in cricket, you have two separate teams. It's almost like it's not related. So your club coach will be with their clubs or the franchises throughout the tour, throughout the tour. Throughout the season, and so will your international coach in parallel with the domestic season. So when we're talking about domestic cricket, how do you judge a coach? Aditya, do you judge it on the amount of players he produces that goes up to national level, and then how he because majority of the time in cricket you lose your players to international cricket, so you have to kind of play your second best team in a way, to win trophies.
Yeah, definitely. I think that would be one metric that would be useful. But in addition to that, it's the performance of the team over a period of a season. You know, how players who've come into the setup have developed over the course of a season or over the course of 2 seasons. You know, ultimately, I think at the domestic level, it's more about it's more about the process as opposed to the outcome, right? You know, you want to see whether a player has gotten better at playing spin or a player has gotten better at bowling a consistent line and length. That's what we're judging players on. You know, are they equipped to play at the international level, or have they gotten better at the skills that they need to succeed at the international level? You know, that's important. Obviously, it would be great to win a domestic trophy, but can that be the sole indicator of the quality of coaching? Probably not. Because you look at the Mumbai team of you know, like the in the Ranji Trophy, you look at the Mumbai team that has consistently been a standout team. You know, does it mean that, and like they've won the Ranji Trophy like some 42 times? You know, does it mean that coaches from other teams are bad or players from other teams are bad? No, it doesn't. Does it mean that the coach of the Mumbai team is brilliant? No, I mean, I don't even remember the names of the coaches of the Mumbai team. I remember the players of the Mumbai team, but not so much the coaches. I'd say the same with Yorkshire, for example. It's been a standout team in domestic cricket in England, or New South Wales. It's been a standout team in domestic cricket in Australia and the Sheffield Shield. You know, so there are so many factors at play. But you know, one other thing that we should probably talk about is the personality of coaches, because we've been reading in recent days about the tension between players in the Australian cricket team and
Hmm.
Justin for his quote unquote you know, hostile and sort of you know, I guess intense coaching style and management style, and a number of players seem to have uh, been at odds with that approach because they feel like it's just adding pressure on the team. So, you know, it's an interesting time to talk about that as well, because coaches have different personalities. We've all been through. The other day, Zahir talked about Graham Smith and Ray Jennings being a marriage made in hell, you know, because they're both two strong characters
Hmm.
and they often seem to clash. But Ray Jennings obviously got the best out of an under 19 team, but he wasn't able to do that with the senior team.
Yeah.
You know, the same with Andy Flower for England.
Yeah. There's so many examples of that, man. There's gonna be some coaches, great coaches that go down in history to have never won a trophy. That doesn't mean that they haven't added value to someone's life and created something that incredible. So I don't think it's the only metric of whether you're good or not. I think Ongama's comment here is brilliant actually. Having trophies as a measurement for the leader's ability is such a crucial thing. It creates the necessary pressure for the leaders involved, but should never be used as the only measurement instrument. So that's a good example of that we're speaking about right there, because There are going to be some coaches, like I said, in a season there can only be one winner, unless you play domestic cricket in South Africa and we share trophies every single year because the rain's out. Then, then obviously that's a different situation. So yeah, I mean, getting my determination of a great coach is getting the best out of players. If you can take a player from being bang average to successful, or you can take a player from being good to world class, or you can take a player from being world class to exceptionally world class, like out of this world. It's by improving the players that you have available to you. A coach should be measured by how you improve the players around you. If you can get the best out of players, so someone like Sir Alex Ferguson was brilliant at getting the best out of the players that he had available to him. There are players there that weren't world class that he turned into world class players, and they were part of a champions winning team. So though if you improve players, if players improve under a certain coach, I think that is a good metric to decide whether a coach is world class or whether a coach is good or not. I think that should be a true measure of success when it comes to that, is how did you improve those players and their mentality. So yeah.
And it's also down to how uh, we often talk about players fitting into an environment and thriving, but
Mm.
the same also applies to a coach, because we have to remember that when a coach is coming into an environment that has mix of youth and experience, I'd say that probably makes a coach a bit more nervous, because the coach has to adapt to the way that the team operates, and it's not that easy, because Mickey Arthur, for example, he was probably the most successful coach at that time. He was probably the most successful coach in Western Australia. Of all the other states in Australia, he was probably the most successful coach in Western Australia, and he ended up becoming the coach of Australia. And he had a great team, with Michael Clark and Steve Smith and Mitchell Johnson and Usman Khwaja and David Warner and all of these guys. So it's still a world class team, and the team did win, but it seemed like that wasn't a happy environment, and that's not down to Mickey Arthur. There must have been several contributing factors, um, but that team did not win a Champions Trophy. It didn't win a T10. It didn't win the T20 World Cup. None of that. But then, and they didn't win the Ashes either. But then Mickey Arthur was unfortunately sacked. Darren Lehman comes in, and with the same team, they win the Ashes 5-0, and then they win the 2015 World Cup.
That's a good
So,
indication.
so what does that tell you? Does that tell you that was Mickey Arthur a bad coach? No, he wasn't. But Darren Lehman just probably understood that environment a bit better. You know.
Yeah. So that's what that's our little 2 cents that we have on this particular topic. I think we've spoken enough on this one. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and you really got into the conversations. We would like to hear what you guys have to say. Let us know. Do you feel that trophies reflect the ability of a coach, or do you think it's a balance, or what do you think? There's a lot of things we've spoken about. We've given different angles. We've said what our opinions are. We've given some opinions from Facebook and what you guys have said on Facebook. We've given opinions on what you guys have said in the live chat. And yeah, so overall, we've spoken about everything I think that we can about this topic, and we'd like to hear what you guys have to say. And it finishes off our coaching week of speaking about coaching, etc., quite well, because we'll be working on the next issue of the magazine very, very soon as well. Don't forget that also we'll have comments about Temba Bavuma's press conference. I think tomorrow it will be. And we'll have a conversation, myself and a teacher on the Daily Show, maybe about that and what Timba had to say, and leading into the Sri Lanka series. I think that would be a good option to do tomorrow for the Daily Show, Aditya. So let's see what Timba has to say leading into the new tour that we're hoping that South Africa can get some success and some momentum into the series and then into the World Cup. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. please download the latest issue of the magazine. Links on the screen and in the description. It's all about coaching in South Africa. It will give you some excellent insight there as well to different stories and different insights from different coaches in the game in South Africa. Thanks a lot. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel and click the notification bell too. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. We'll see you again tomorrow with another daily show. Enjoy your next week of hard work and try to have some fun while you're working hard, guys. Take care.